I remember the time when I used to come to the market and not even know what direction it's gonna go and just look for buys and sells in random areas and hope that it would work, but it never did. So that's why I created the video about session bias, because when you come to the charts, you have to have a session bias. You have to know if you're looking for sells or for buys, and that is going to be based on the daily and 4-hour candles. So if you haven't watched that video, you can check that out. But in that video, I talk about mixed sessions, because normally when you have a daily bullish and a 4-hour bullish, you can look for example buys, but sometimes if those are mixed, maybe you can't look for buys or you can't look for sells because it's not clear. So in this video, I'm going to talk about mixed sessions and how you guys can always find a clear direction or a clear plan as to where to look for trades on the chart. And that's what we're going to cover, and we're going to do it in as little time as possible, because it shouldn't be a complex topic and you should have a clear and strong plan when trading. So with that being said, let's get straight into the video. Alright, welcome back guys. Harry here, known as Tradesharpe, and I really do hope you enjoy this video and understand about my session bias. If you haven't checked out already, I have another session bias video where I had a free indicator that I made for you guys, which comes up here, and this is exactly what we're going to talk about, the mixed sessions. If you're new to the channel, can we get all of the normal YouTube stuff away? A like and subscribe always does help. I read your comments, and down below are some free groups where people ask me these questions, because this question came from the group and is why I'm making the video. So if you have more questions or want to see my daily analysis or basically what I'm doing on the charts, join the group, and it's a great place to basically not just see other people's profits, but see people's trades. So with that being said, what a mixed session means. So just to go over, basically to refresh you guys, when we have a clear session bias, means we have a clear idea of what direction we expect the market to move during that day and what direction we're looking, more importantly, to take a trade in, right? So if we, for example, have a daily candle bearish, so we have one daily candle that's bearish like this, and this is the previous daily candle, and we have the previous daily candle also, previous 4-hour candle, sorry, also bearish. That means when we come, and this is the previous 4-hour candle before your session, that means in the session we're going to look for bearish movement, which means we're going to essentially look for sells, right? So we're going to look to sell in the session because the previous daily candle is bearish, the previous 4-hour candle is bearish before our session. So what makes sense is to sell to continue the momentum of the daily and the previous candle towards our session, right? Now, there is a case where you will see basically the charts form in different ways. So you might see a daily bullish, a 4-hour bearish. In that case, you need to look at, is there only one bearish 4-hour candle before a session, or is there two? Because if the momentum before your session is more bearish, maybe sells make more sense, but still that's not enough information, because if we're, for example, in an uptrend like this and there's just been two bearish 4-hour candles in that uptrend and the daily is strongly bullish, buys still can make sense, because what might happen is we might pull back to an area of interest, and if we start seeing structure change from that zone, we could eventually look for buys. So just those two 4-hour candles are not going to be enough, but they can give you a good indication, and this is where it becomes complicated and where many traders fail. I would say most of the time you are going to have a clear direction, but what's going to be important is when you don't and you have these mixed sessions, how are you going to develop a bias? Because in trading, a bias is really, really important. So to keep this video short and simple, what you're going to do is when you come to the chart, you're going to look at, more importantly, first the daily. The daily is going to give you a lot of information because the daily is a strong close. The second thing you're going to look, and this is only applies to when things are going to be mixed. So we're going to have a look at the example here. So let's have a look at, for example, this current daily here. So the first thing we're going to look at here is we're going to look at this daily. So this daily here has closed bullish. That's the first thing I'm going to understand, and that's giving me a lot of information that we could possibly see some more upside based on this bullish candle closure here. So that's the first step that I'm going to keep in mind. But obviously when we go to the 4-hour, we do have a bearish 4-hour candle, which is making our session mixed here, right? So if I was to ask you guys behind the screen, what are you going to look for, buys or sells? This is where you're going to get a lot of, I would say probably 50% of people are going to say buy and 50% of people are going to say sell. We're tapping into this resistance. It's a good place to sell. Now, this is where you have to develop your bias into what makes most sense on the chart. Personally, for me, it is too early to sell, and I will be looking for buys in this situation. Why? Because of, I can see that we've had 1, 2, 3, 4 hours of strong upside, followed by a wick here and a potential resistance here. But until I see on lower time frame structure start to change, this could just be a pullback to continue more upside. Maybe it can pull back even deeper, right? If I saw another 4-hour candle close bearish here, this will be a clear resistance, and I can expect possibly some more downside before seeing potentially upside to continue the daily trend. And this is where you're going to have to look at, okay, what makes most sense? And it is complicated, and it is something that you're going to gain with experience and gain with looking at the charts. There's not always hard rules that make sense. When there's a mixed session, you have to understand what makes most sense on the chart logically, right, based on previous candle closures. Because if you had one bullish 4-hour candle like this, right, and then you had two strong bearish, even though this bullish candle made the bias bullish, but then you had two strong bearish candles here, what do you think the bias will switch to? Well, obviously bearish, because we've had two strong 4-hour bearish closures, meaning that the bias should change, because this two 4-hour candles is going to be more significant than this one bearish candle. The same scenario here, this 1, 2, 3 bullish 4-hour candles plus the daily bullish is going to be more significant than just one bearish candle. And that's how you're going to develop your bias here, and that's what's going to help you to take a trade. So if we went down to the lower time frame, say we're taking trades on a 30-minute, we can obviously establish we have a few ranges here. Now we are breaking down, so probably, we could look for, if price closed below here, this could be an opportunity to possibly sell into these zones here. But we have to be careful to understand that this could simply just be a pullback, because we are pulling back to this zone. So personally for me, until I see possibly in this area here, we can see, until I see structure below this zone here, closes below and resistance, that would be a good option to sell. Following a mixed bias, which takes me on to the last part of this session, is that sometimes there's two very, very important things. Sometimes you can take both buys and sells in a session. So for example, if I saw candles start to close above this zone here, I know that we're rejecting here, and I can possibly look to tap this zone and possibly continue the momentum from here. But if we start closing below here and creating resistance, I could take sells, but I know very well based on the daily candle, at any point we could get a rejection. So I'm going to be careful about that. But having a mixed session means I can also look for two areas that make sense in that particular time on the chart. Even though I have a more favorable bias because I prefer buys in this situation, there is a possibility to sell, and this will come as you become more advanced and more comfortable. If you're a beginner, I would recommend just taking a step back if it doesn't make sense and just trade clear directional biases. The last point before I'm going to end this video is going to be a very simple point, that is, if you don't understand what's going on the chart, don't trade. It's as simple as that. Not trading is actually a form of trading, and is actually going to help you a lot if you make a decision not to trade, because A, you're going to put yourself in a position that you're not particularly comfortable because it's not something you particularly understand, and B, if you're trading without a clear bias, it's going to affect your probabilities and statistics, which is going to affect your trade outcome, of course. So sometimes it's okay not to take a trade, and that's what you have to be as a trader. You have to make decisions, and sometimes it's a good decision not to trade and wait for clearer and better options, because you don't have to take every single move on the chart. Because if you try take every single move in the chart and you end up losing on most of those moves, guess what? Now you're just losing money in the market. But if you wait for clear bias and then you take a trade that makes most sense to you and it ends up winning, you're going to be more comfortable, take more of those, and gain long-term profitability. So that being said, guys, take care, trade sharp, and until next time, peace.